organizations that were doing community development in the black community. He talked to his wife and told her that he really felt that he absolutely had to go to Selma. He promised her that he would be home the next night. He came and got ready to march, and they got stopped at the bridge. He called his wife and said, well, first of all, he had his suitcase in the trunk of the wife of the president of Unitarian Church of Atlanta. And he came back and he took his suitcase out and said, I'm going to call my wife. There may be more than I can do. And that night, he went with 3 friends to the Blue Moon Cafe. And upon leaving, they were going back to Brown's Chapel, and he was clubbed by a couple of KKK people, thugs, and didn't die immediately. They took him because he was working in the black community, they considered him black, and he was not. The ambulances were reserved for whites, and he was not considered white at that point. The way hospitals were handled for transporting ill people in the black community was with a hearse, and they called the hearse to take him to Birmingham because there wasn't any availability for neuro work. He was clubbed on his head, and there were all kinds of terrible things that happened. The tires went flat, and they had to come back and get a different car, and it was pretty awful. He went to Birmingham. LBJ and Martin Luther King had conversations over the next 2 days. He was clubbed on the 9th of March, and he died on the 11th. They had time to bring his wife to Birmingham and his father, and that's when they decided he was already brain dead. They pulled the plug. But the year that I met Mary Liuzzo Lilivo, the Reeb family came from California and Wyoming to help Mrs. Lowry and me dedicate the Reeb Memorial that you will see in downtown Selma, where he was found. And we got to meet the 2 daughters. The 2 sons are still too traumatized by the whole thing and couldn't come. But the older son sent his 2 daughters. And so it was really a delightful time to get to know them. And when we finished with the trip, they came back to our house and thanked my husband and I for giving them their father back. All the times that they were growing up, they were angry with him that he chose to go to Selma and die. And every time they had a party at school, or a birthday, or a prom, or the times that fathers are important to girls, he wasn't there. And they had been angry up until the time that they came on this trip and realized how very important his life had been, and that in some way they had been affected by that, and could now see the importance of the whole thing, and come to a peaceful place. So direct action. You know what direct action is? When you go down to AT&T and demonstrate, or you go to Bank of America and demonstrate, you can now be, with this bill passed, if it passes, you are eligible to be arrested, and it is changing from a misdemeanor to a felony just for participating. Any two people gathered to do a kind of protest, it's going to strip us of our right to assemble. I'm not sure exactly. It's for, I think, 60 something. I'll check it. But this is really, it's in committee right now. The guy that wrote it is the man who owns Waffle House. I think his name is Barlow or Bartow or something like that. But Balfour. And if you want to keep your money out of his hands, I suggest you find another place to have breakfast, lunch or dinner, but far be it from our Waffle House. So you keep your eyes on what we're all about. I came down, Alan and I came for the dedication of the Coretta Scott King Memorial at the church that she grew up in. And when we went back a year later, there was a big sign, you know, those green signs that tell you this is where what such and such is going on or has gone on. And it said home of Coretta Scott King. It had multiple bullet holes in it. So when we go past that today, pay attention. That's only been within the last 5 years. And this is still